Tvach. We're learning as chutz for Shleim Filan Chaya Baserach, where I think, yeah, we're towards the top of Ayin Beis Amid Beis. I feel like, yeah, Ayin Beis Amid Beis. 6 lines from the top. Tashma. We're still talking about the question of whether Mashiach is kind of when Ovid Kechavim is one of the parties to the kinyan. It doesn't mean B'dafka Mashiach, means Hagba as well. So Tashma, we bring a raya from the Mishnah. Hamara mikli lekli. When someone pours from one kli to another, Eshem ar mimenu mutter. That kli that he poured from is mutter. What's in the kli? I mean, when he poured from a kli that's has regular wine in it, and he poured. That's the Gemara's Havamin at this point, and he pours into a kli that l'chayra has yayin nesach. We say the kli that you poured from remains mutter. Hada beini asur. We're on Ayin Beis Amid Beis, about 6-7 lines down. It's mashma, but that which hasn't yet reached the kli underneath, that hasn't reached the yayin nesach, is asur. Shmamino nitzach chibur. I'm sorry. So I said we were talking about the question of Mashiach's kind of, whether we're talking about the question of nitzach. Talking about the question of whether nitzach is considered, whether when you have a flowing stream, when you have a stream from one thing to the next, is it mechaber what's on top to what's on bottom? In this case, what's on bottom is yayin nesach. Does it make what's on top of it also yayin nesach? So Gemara. So l'chayr, this is for the Mendayik that beini is also. What's flowing out from the kli on top is also that the nitzuk, that means the stream connects what's the yayin nesach on bottom to this flowing stream. In fact, why are we saying only what's beini is also? Everything should be also, even the kli that you poured out from. Why did we say? How you said hamara mikli shemari menu mutter? That kli that you poured out of his mutter. So we made a diak, but that which is in between is also. But even what's on top, what's in the original kli should be also, because of the same stream. So we're talking about where he's pouring in short spurts. So he pours a little bit out, it leaves his kli, and it goes into the bottom kli. So, but it's no longer connected to the original kli when it hits the bottom. So, okay, so we've addressed this question. So, l'chayra, we have a raya. So why is taka the beini aser? It must be because nitzuk is a chibur. I'll ask you.
Obviously, the one in the keli, the bottom keli is definitely aser, right?
What's in the keli is yayin nesach.
That is yayin
nesach in the kli on bottom. And the question is, what about what's in between the top kli and the bottom kli with Mugdayik, that it must be aser, because it said what's in the top is mutter, so it must be because of nitzuk is chibur. And we answered the question that the top kli is a different thing. We're talking about katif ketufi, that it's no longer attached to the top. It says the Brisa continues, the Mishnah continues, and it says that the kli, the wine that has entered into the airspace of the bottom kli becomes aser. Beini shari. It's mashma only when it reaches into the bottom kli that it becomes aser. But what's in between is mutter. We can't prove anything because from the fact that we said the top is mutter, it's mashma beini is aser. From the fact that we said what's in what got into the yayin that mixed with the yayin nesach is also it's mashma the beini is mutter. So we can't prove either way. Tashma, bring a different right. Someone who pours from a barrel into a bar. So again, at this point, we think we're talking about from a chavis of a yid pouring from a chavis of good yayin into a bar that has yayin esach. Kiluach hayard mismas chavis lamata also. the stream that comes out of the edge of the barrel when you pour it out, from there on, it's asr. So you see, nitzak is a chibur. That's the reason why it's asr. And Tirgum of Sheshes, no, you're misunderstanding Bechlal what that Bryce is talking about. But Ovid Kechavim, Hama'ara, we're talking about where the Ovid Kechavim is the one who's pouring out the wine. The Asi Mikoichai. The problem over here is not a problem that it's touching a different Yayin Nesach. It's that we know that when the Ovid Kechavim touches Yayin, he makes it Stam Yainam, he makes it Aser. But over here, or if he mixes it, over here, and it doesn't have to be that he touches directly. If he even uses his kayach to project it, it's also awesome. So over here, we're talking about since the Ovid Kechavim poured it, that's the reason why it becomes awesome. So why is it only what comes out of the barrel? He's also moving what's inside of the barrel, and that should also be awesome. So the aser, it's only awesome midrabanan. The only geyser from his kayach on that which emerges from the kli. His kayach does not affect, like if he takes a sealed kli and shakes it, it doesn't become aser as kayach. As long as there's no chance that he touched it, and it's only pure kayach, kayach only works on that which comes out of a kli, not while it's in the kli.
So the rice is only if he sticks his finger into it.
No, or if he causes the wine to go out, even without touching it, once it exits the kli that it's in, that's considered his kayach to asa.
So if a guy pours a bottle of wine, according to this, what's left in the bottle is fine.
Right. If he didn't touch the wine.
Yeah.
But we're always chayshish for that, right? That's what you're asking about.
Yeah.
We're chayshish when they touch the bottle.
Even if it's sealed.
Maybe we don't pass them like that.
I'm just saying, according to this.
Yeah, you have to know. You have to know what the halacha is. Yeah, let's see what Rashi says. The gavoy le'os gazaban halacha kershe shein adam chalakolav v'm shafach oivik kechavim min akli mutar mashen nishavakli. If an oivik kechavim pours, if you have a waiter pouring from a kli, it's going to be awesome. But obviously, you can't have a waiter pouring where there are yidden drinking because the waiter is going to pour for the yid. The yid's what he poured into the yid's kais is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if he touches the wine inside of the bottle, which is not so shchiach. Yeah, I don't see that I don't see the psak here. Yeah, I gotta look up the halachas. Yeah.
So if a guy touches a sealed bottle of wine, it doesn't seem to be a problem at all.
No. I don't think that's certainly not a problem. Otherwise, it would be impossible. Like you think about it, there's all kinds of, we don't have the hashgacha on every step of the supply chain,
right,
so that a guy didn't touch a sealed bottle. Amru Rav Chizda lahanu savita. Rav Chizda said to these people, these wine merchants, when you measure out wine to evdik kechavim, katvi katufi nami nafzi nefutzi. You should either stop pouring as it's going because we hold nitzak as a chibur, right? We're done with the kayach. Now we're back to the nitzak, and we're paskening l'chayr that it is. He's paskening. Rav Chizda is paskening that nitzak is a problem. So therefore, when you pour out from evdik kechavim, since he'll have some yayin of yayin nesach in his cup, you should make sure to do it in spurts so it's not connected to what you're pouring, so what's left in the bottle doesn't become yayin nesach. Should either spritz it out, like if you're not sure that you're going to be able to stop it, that you won't have an uninterrupted stream, make sure to throw it into his kli from far away so there's no possibility of a stream at all. Amluhu Rava, lahanu shafuchai, to these people who pour, these waiters, when you're pouring out wine, make sure that you don't get a guy to be your assistant. Maybe we're going back to Kaichai. Maybe you'll get distracted. You'll look at your phone for a minute, and the Oivik Kechavim will be pouring by himself. Because and then it will be purely his kayach. If it's a mixture of the yid's kayach and the guy's kayach, it's not a problem. But the problem is, what if the yid loses his attention, he gets distracted, and he doesn't pour, and the guy's pouring by himself for a yid, awesome. So become yayin esach, because it will be purely the guy's kayach. Who gavra the asik chamra begishta ubas gishta. There was a person who used a siphon. A gishna bas gishta is two tubes that they would make a right angle out of it. They would attach them. I'd never understood this magic, but we all know that you can somehow suck up gasoline through a tube and it will cause the gasoline to keep pouring. So that's what they used to do with wine also. They would suck from one barrel and it would get the wine siphoning through some magic, and it will go into the other barrel. So that's what he was doing. Also, a guy came and put his hand on the place where the wine was coming out. Asira Rava l'kulicha. Rava said that all of the wine that was from the barrel that was being siphoned out of is also because the guy touched the end of the tube. What happened? Is this because of nitzuk? Shami no nitzuk chibur. So you see from here that nitzuk is a chibur, even though we said before, Rava, we said we paskin that nitzuk is a problem, right? Said you should do it, you should wash for it. So I'm not sure why it's such a chiddush. But anyway, you see from here, Shami no nitzuk chibur. So no, that's not a right. Nitzuk is a chibur. Shani hosam to kuli chamra gishtu bas gishta gar. Since it's not just a passive, that the water is going passively through it, but there's a force. The wine is going by itself. It's being drawn through this gishta. Therefore, when the guy stops it, it's not stama nitzuk. It's not just something pouring from gravity, but there's a force behind it, and therefore it's considered more unified with that wine that's in the siphon. So when the guy touches the end of the siphon, it's as if he's touching the whole thing. Amar Zutra Breder of Nachman. Kanishkinin Shari. Kanishkinin, if you'll excuse me, it sounds to me like a liquid hookah. It sounds like some kind of kli. I could read the Rashi. Kanishkinin kli rachav. It's a wide kli. Yesh shnei kanim. It has 2 or 3 straws coming out of it. Yotzei mitzida from the sides. And shachim va'ilin keneged gavaya. They go up. When you put wine into this bottle, all of the tubes, the straws coming out of it get filled. And everyone can drink from this thing at the same time. We call it krugla, and in any case, that's what it was. So we said this condition, shari. It's okay. Zagrashi lishis by Yisrael v'ayv'gecham biyachad. A guy and a yid could drink. Shecholzman shu moitzitz ein yayin shenageh bepi ayv'gecham chayz lamata. As long as he's sipping, the drink that he's drinking, with the wine that he's drinking, doesn't go back. It's not reversing back to where it came from. It's just going into his mouth, but it's not considered to be. It goes into his mouth. He drinks it, but it doesn't go back and touch what was in the kli. That's only if the yid stops first. So if kechavim stops first, then when he stops drinking, so let's say he puts his tongue over the tube, so his tongue is touching the wine, and that wine gets reversed back into everyone else. So therefore, the yid who's also drinking from this hookah type of thing is also going to be he's going to be connected to the tongue of the Oived Kechavim, and it's going to become Yayin Esach, or Yayin Stam Yena. Rabba Barahuna Ikla Bereish Galusha Sharlu Lamishta Kanishkanim. In the Bereish Galusa, they allowed him to drink Kanishkanim, Bepashtus, This is saying that the same thing that we just said, that you could do it together with Ovid Avodah Zarah. Igadami Rabba Bar Huna Gufei Ishte Beknishkanin. That Rabba Bar Huna himself drank from one of these things. So everyone's very bothered. Taisus is very bothered. How could it be such a thing that Rabba Bar Huna was drinking together with Goyim? So he says it was a different issue. The issue was that he says from Reinu Hananel, that it was something that was possibly also because it's a derech simcha that you can't do after the churban habayis. So that's what we were talking about here, was whether it could be done, and we see Rabbi Rav Huna himself did it. He said it's not us. It's like we're not allowed to listen to music now. Okay, that was the easy part. Zok the Mishnah. Yayin nesach aser v'oiser b'cholshu. Yayin nesach is aser, and it asers with a kolshuhu. As we said before, when you have yayin nesach that mixes with other yayin, it's b'kolshu. It's not with nice and tam. All you need, any amount, is aser b'mina. Yayin b'yayin umayim b'mayim. And the Gemara explains, the Mishnah explains, I'm sorry, it's not what we're saying. What are we saying? Oisa b'cholshu, it means wine into wine and mayim into mayim, meaning if you have mayim that's osir and mayim that's mutter, even if there's just a mashu of yayin that was nevad, yayin nesach, or mayim also could be nevad. This is talking about mayim that a guy worshipped or used for his takrevis, becomes osir, it will asir b'cholshu if it mixes b'minoi with other yayin in the case of wine, or with other water in the case of mayim. Yayin b'mayim u'mayim b'yayin. But what if you have different types of things? Min b'she'ena minoi, b'nois and tam. Then it's not going to aser with a kolshu. The pashtus, it's going to be aser with a nois and tam. Zeh klal, min b'mina b'mashu, shaloi b'mina b'nois and tam. The Mishnah says very clearly that when you mix min b'minoi, two similar things, if you have a mashu of the iser, it's going to be aser. But shaloi b'minoi, if it's something that's, if it's two different types of things, it's not enough. It's not going to aser with a mashu only when it's a nois and tam, which generally is 1 in 60. Or you could just taste it and see if it has a taste in it. Ki aser Rav Dimi Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Dimi said b'shem Rav Yochanan, he has an entirely different pshat in this Mishnah. He's going to say a pshat, and then we're going to have a big question of how do we understand the Mishnah. He said, Hama'ara yayin nesach michavis lebar. If someone's pouring yayin nesach into a bar that has regular yayin, afilu kol hayom kula, even if you do this all day, so you started out with a cup of kosher wine in the you start up with a cup of kosher wine. Just 1 second, sorry. Oh boy. Just 1 second, I apologize. So many steps. Yeah. So he says, Hama'ara yayin nesach mechavis lebar. If someone pours yayin nesach from his barrel into a bar, I feel kolayim kol. If you do it all day, so you took 100 gallons of yayin nesach, and you poured it into a cup, a bar which has 1 gallon of kosher yayin, rishon bottle. As you pour it in, every bit of yayin nesach, as it goes in its bottle, it's not enough. As it comes 1 drop at a time, it's not enough to aser. He holds that yayin nesach, even though it's min b'minai, is not aser b'mashu, it can be batal unless it's nice and tam. And since it's just a small amount, it's less than the nice and tam as it comes in. Each individual drop becomes batal to the heter, and it becomes, you can have 100 gallons poured in as long as it goes, as long as it's poured in one drop at a time. It keeps being batal, and it's going to all be mutter. So we said two chedushim in B'dimi Yom Rabbi Yochanan. First of all, he says that min b'minoi of yayin nesach is kosher. If even though it's he says it's not b'mashu, it has to be a nice and tam. And secondly, he says that as you pour it in, it becomes batal. So you never have at one time enough. Each thing joins the heter, becomes batal and joins the heter, and then the increased heter is mevatel whatever comes after.
That's a great way. It's a great workaround to make yain nesach good.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the biggest chiddush here.
Yeah.
That's the two chiddushim we just said over. We finally found a way to be matar.
I'm
Yain nesach.
just going to remind you can't be mevatel and isel l'chadchila. You can't come up with this as a plan. You could maybe you could tell the Rav, I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I told you this, it's too late.
If the price is right,
Yes, I don't think you can do this l'chadchila.
So Shas Latkak, when it comes to drinking wine, goes very far,
Yeah. Imagine if you had to do this for scotch. Thank goodness, though, you decided a long time ago that all scotch is kosher, except for the ones in oak. And what is it? Not oak. Port casks. Tnan. In fact, the Gemara from our Mishnah. Yayin nesach asav oisa b'cholshu.
Did you skip Loi?
What do you mean? No, I think you're further along than we are.
Yeah.
We're up to the first kasha.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Tnan. Yayin nesach. In fact, the Gemara. Yain nesach oisev asur. It's asav oisev b'cholshu. It's asav b'cholshu. My love, the kanafel isura l'goy hetera. L'chayro, it's talking about what our Mishnah is talking about is that iser fell into heter, and even so, it's asur b'mashu. We don't say like Rabbi Yochanan said, like Rav Dimi's version of Rabbi Yochanan. We're going to have a bunch of other versions of Rabbi Yochanan, but in this version, that it's not that it doesn't asa b'cholshu and it gets bottled as it goes along. So we're going to know, loy, the kanafel hetera l'goy isura. That's not what the Mishnah is talking about. When we say that yayin nesach is asav or isa b'kolshu, it's talking about where the heter fell into iser. So then the heter, as it goes in, is going to be bottle to the iser. It's going to all be bottle, and it's coming to tell you b'kolshu. Even if you keep having heter, now we're saying a chumrah fakert. Even if you have heter falling in 100 gallons of heter, since it's only coming in one drop at a time, each drop is going to be bottle. It's certainly going to be the is going to be nice and tam at a minimum to it. There's going to even be more. Yeah. So it's going to be. That's what it means. That it's going to be awesome. So that's what the Mishnah meant. Toshma frak Gemara yayin b'mayim b'nois and tam. The Mishnah continued. It said if you have. Oh yeah. Toshma yayin b'mayim b'nois and tam. We said if you have wine that fell into water, it's also b'nois and tam, right? We said that the yayin b'yayin is also b'kolshu, which we just explained to mean that it just means that if you have the heter falling into the isser, it's going to be also, even though it ends up being just a mashahu of isser connected all of the heter that fell in. But then the Mishnah continued, said, yayin b'mayim, when you have wine that fell into water, b'nois and tam, that it's going to be also b'nois and tam. My love, the kanafel chamra de isura l'may datera. L'chayra, it's a pashas like we were explaining, like we explained when we learned the Mishnah, we said that the isser fell into the heter. So, and then if that's the case, why don't we say that the isser is bottled to the heter? And even if it is nice and tam, it should still be mutter, because as it came in, it was bottled. Each drop is certainly not enough to be nice and tam as a single drop. This is also talking about, like we said in the first part of the Mishnah. I'm not sure why the Gemara would have assumed that the Sefer was talking about Yisura L'Goy HaTeira when we already explained the Reisha that's HaTeira L'Goy Yisura. I'm sorry, where was that? We explained the Reisha that it was Isura, where you're putting Isura into Heter into Isur. Zakmara loy the kanafel chamed ter le maya di Isura. So Rashi has to explain this. So what does it mean b'nois and tam? It's not l'chayra. It's aser. It should be. It's aser when the chamed etera. As soon as every drop is bottled, it's not a nois and tam. Zok the Rashi. Loy chamed etera b'gay maya di Isura. Zok Rashi Ashminan. The kol kamed yavi maya taima b'chamra itzer. As long as the water, which is also is giving a tam into the chamra, ad sheyivatel tam hayayin is tam hamayim, unless the tam of the wine is an avatel the tam of wine. Going to nafel kuli kechoda. Rashi explains it's talking about where everything fell all in one shot. And we're talking about a case where there was no opportunity. It wasn't coming in a stream. It was like one big belly flop of all of the yayin of heter went into the mayim of Isura, and therefore it's going to depend if the yayin that fell in was enough that there was no tam of the mayim that's also in it, then it will still be mutter. It's only if it's still enough to be nice and tam, then it's going to be also. And this is the Rishonim have a terrible problem with this, that we're always gonna. It's hard to see where the nafkamina is between min b'minai and min b'she'ena mina. We're always gonna say when something pours in, that as it comes in, whether it's lahater or lechumra, we're always gonna say that each thing is bottle. It's only in this case where everything fell in at the same time that l'chayra will be a nafkamina of whether it's not min b'minai or not min b'she'ena mina. I'm not sure why it's so bothersome to them. Why can't the only nafkamina be in the case of Rashi, where it all fell in at one time? I'm not exactly sure what they were bothered. So they want to say that we're saying a chiddush over here that's only negeya to yayin nesach. The yayin nesach, since it's avodah zarah that's involved, that therefore that Rav Dimi is saying that that yayin nesach, that we say a chumrah that as the yayin of heter goes in, it's going to be bottled to the yayin nesach, but we wouldn't necessarily say the other way around. Correct the Gemara. In any case, from the fact that the reisha, meaning the first case, we said yayin b'mayim and mayim b'yayin. So we said the yayin b'mayim is talking about where wine that was mutter fell into mayim that's aser. So we're talking about mayim d'isura. Sefer nami b'mayim d'isura, mayim d'isura. So the sefer is also talking about where the mayim is aser. Uktani sefer, and nevertheless we said mayim b'yayin b'nois and tam. We said it's b'nois and tam. At least according to the Ritva, l'chayr, it's only when you have heter going into iser that we say the chumrah, that we say it's. I'm sorry, when you have iser going into heter, that we can say b'nois and tam. But if it's heter going into iser, we wouldn't say b'nois tam. It would be b'mashu. Amalek Rav Dimi.
So we're makel, in other words.
He said we would be makel where you have iser going into heter. It was a chumrah that we said legabe heter going to iser. Since the iser is kavua in the thing, and you try to be mevatel the heter that's coming into it, we're machmer on yayin nesach. But he's saying, but we shouldn't say the other way around when when the Maya that's Asr is on the bottom. So why we say b'sayv mayim b'yayin b'noisen
I think the safe is where you have kosher wine into yayin esel.
No, we have the sefer is we have mayim. At least at this point, we're suggesting we're talking about mayim and yayin, and one of them is aser. It's not mayim can also be aser, right? Mayim could be aser
Right.
in it. So we said the way we explained the first case, we had yayin b'mayim,
Which was
We're
the
talking about-
bottom object was usher, is always
was
usher.
aser, and that's and that's what Rashi said. If it all falls in at the same time, we're going to say
I'm
that
not sure why we
only
think
mayim
that.
here.
Why wouldn't we look at what's being poured is in the ratio we had, what was being poured was good, was right, kosher wine into yayin that was usher. So in the sefer should be the same thing. The
Because
water
we
that's
said
now
this-
being poured.
So
It's
I'm going
kosher.
with the Ritva because I really don't understand Rashi. The Ritva says that it's a chumrah only on yayin nesach, that we say that everything becomes usher b'mashvu. That's why we say when you have the yayin nesach falling into the mayim of iser, it's only gonna be b'nois and tam, because it's not yayin nesach. You don't have the chumrah of yayin nesach that we say that it can't. You don't say that the heter of that should be bottle as it comes in. But for mayim nesach or mayim of avodah zara, we would say. But then the Gemara asks, the Mishnah said also the case of yayin into. We had the case of mayim into yayin, and in that case, and we said on that also that it's benois and tam. Is that the question?
No, I don't know what was. We see that this water into wine, which is the sefer, right?
Yeah. The sefer, there's
It's safe. For some reason, I'm not sure why we're always saying
we're talking about the two parts. We're talking about
Yeah.
yayin b'mayim and mayim b'yayin. So we already proved that the first part, yayin b'mayim, is talking about. It can't be talking about chamer d'isur l'maya detera. Can't be with the chamer is also. It's talking about.
For some reason, the Havmin over here was saying that the water is not. When we discuss the water, it's always usher water.
If the water was mutter, then it wouldn't make sense why we would say that yayin b'mayim is also b'nois and tam. It should not be also at all, because we should say, according to Rav Dimi b'shem Rav Yochanan, it's bottle as it comes in. So we said no. It's talking about where the wine of heter fell into mayim d'isura. So it can't get bottle as it falls in. It's what's falling into is also. But it's only b'nois and tam because it's not what do you call it? It's not yayin nesach. It's mayim nesach, and mayim nesach it's not asa b'mashu. But now we ask, what about the other case? The safe is also at this point the Gemara is understanding. Once we talked about one maya, all the mayas are going to be the same thing. It's going to also be talking about mayim of yayin nesach. In the second case, where it said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have mayim going into yayin. It's benois and tam. But why should mayim of isser going into yayin be benois and tam? It should not be usser at all. We should say it's bottle as it goes in, which is the shita of Rav Dimi b'shem Rav Yochanan. We only said that there's a chumrah. Whatever. I'm not going to go through from the beginning, but we said in the case of yayin of heter going into mayim of isser, that will be benois and tam. But where it's mayim of isser going into yayin of heter, there's not going to be benois and tam. It's not going to be usser at all. No matter how much falls in, it's always going to be one drop at a time, and it won't be able to become usser. It will always be bottle to the yayin of heter. right?
So mayim that's also into yain that's mutter, you need more than noise and tam.
You can't. It doesn't make a difference how much you have. Every drop that comes in his bottle, as it comes in successively, and you can have a whole world. You can have a swimming pool full, and it's all going to be mutter. It was only when you had heter going into Isser, then Rav Dimi's. I'm sorry, when you have Isser when you have heter going into Isser, then Rav Dimi's heter is not going to apply. Everything's going to be Aser. I mean, like we said, there's going to be a chiluk between Yain and Nesach, that it's going to be b'mashu, and everything else is going to be b'nois and tam, but you're not going to have any Isser at all when you have Isser going into heter, because it's just a drop at a time. As Dr. Gemara, so how would you understand? The whole mission is talking about where heter is going into Isser. And he says, don't get stuck up because we said the first case that the mayim was aser, that the second case also has to be. When we said that it was nafel yayin l'mayim or mayim l'yayin, both cases we're talking about where the heter is heter is falling into Isser, and that's why it's going to be aser with a nice and tam. Ki aser Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan. He said a different pshat in Rav Yochanan. That was Rav Dimi's pshat in Rav Yochanan, that yayin is not aser b'mashu. It's only b'nois and tam, and that you also have to have and that it will, each successive drop will become batal. He says a different pshat in Rav Yochanan. He says a different member from Rav Yochanan. Hama'ara yayin nesach mitzirtzur katan lebar, someone who pours yayin nesach from a small flask into a bar. Afilu kalayam kuloi rishon batal. He says similar to what Rav Dimi said, that it's going to be batal, even though he ends up having more yayin nesach in the bar than the kosher yayin, but every little bit that comes in will be batal. He says v'dafka tzir kukatan deloy nafesh amudeh, but that's only if you have a thin spout on this pitcher, so a little bit comes out at a time. Aval chavis, but if he pours from a barrel, the nafesh amudeh, that it pours out a lot at a time, loy. On that we wouldn't say this chiddush of Rav Dimi Amar Rav Avin. He has a Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef he says that it's not always true. Rav Dimi says this din that we always say that it comes in a drop at a time. It depends on the size of the spout that it's coming through. He also Rav Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav said b'shem Rav Yochanan a different din. Yayin nesach shenafel lebar. If you have yayin nesach that fell into a pit, v'nafel sham kitin shel mayim, the pit had yayin kosher in it, and in addition to the yayin nesach that fell into the pit, it also fell in a flask of mayim, which is kosher. We're not talking anymore about mayim of Isser. So the mayim is mimbish einamina. So we're going away from Rav Dimi's pshat and Rabbi Yochanan. We're saying a new pshat and Rabbi Yochanan. We're going with the din that we said, the pashtus of our Mishnah, that min b'min is b'mashu, and shalai b'min is b'nois and tam. So he poured yayin nesach, and it fell into the bar. So, and in the bar was wine that's mutter, which is problematic because the yayin nesach is gonna aser b'mashu. But it also fell into the bar a kitan of mayim. Mayim is eine minoy of the yayin nesach, so it's only aser b'nois and tam. So we say we say this is going to be the linchpin of the whole next sugya, that we ignore the yayin of heter, and therefore we don't say it gets added to the yayin of Isser. We're talking about a case over here that the yayin shel Isser is not enough to be nois and tam in the mayim of heter. It's only if you say that the yayin of heter joins forces with the yayin nesach, because we say the min b'mina is asa b'mashu, so the min b'mina asas the heter wine. So let's say, let's put it this way: you have 40 gallons of mayim, and you have you have 70 gallons of mayim, and you have 1 gallon of yayin nesach and 1 gallon of yayin of ptur. So the yayin of nesach is not enough to be nice and tam in the mayim. But if you add to it, if you say that the yayin of heter is first bottle to the yayin of nesach, then you have 2 gallons of yayin nesach altogether, and they would be nice and tam in the mayim. So he says, no, we don't say that. We say royin es haheter kiluena. We ignore the yayin of heter. We don't say it's bottled to the yayin of nesach. Hashar mayim rabba lav mevatlan. And then the mayim can be mevatel the yayin nesach. Ki aser of Shmuel by Yehudam Rav Yochanan lo yishamol shenafel kiddush hamayim tchila. This is only the case if you first had the yayin of heter, the water fell into the mayim of heter of the yayin of heter. Now, even though yayin of heter cannot be bottled to mayim, but the mayim was there first, so the yayin of nesach did not have a chance to be mevatel the yayin of heter. But if the yayin nesach fell in before the mayim, motzei minas minoi v'nir. So then the yayin nesach will first enliven the other min, the yayin shall heter, and it'll become all yayin nesach, and it will be us. Ikedamasni la amasnisim. Some have this. Remember that it was said on the Mishnah. Yayin b'yayin kol shehu. Yayin b'yayin is a kol shehu. That's what our Mishnah said, right? That a yayin b'yayin is a kol shehu. Amar of Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar of Yechon leishon shalei nafel sham kitin shal mayim. That which we say that a mashu of yayin is bottled to yayin of a mashu of yayin nesach is aser's yayin of any amount. That's only talking about whether the mayim did not fall in first. If the mayim came in before the mayim of the yayin of heter, the mayim is marba on it and is mevatel it. Zok the Gemara. Right. So Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda said that it's only where you first had yayin of heter, the water fell into it, and then afterwards the yayin nesach fell in. So we say that in that case the yayin nesach never had a chance to be mevatel the yayin of heter. But if the nesach wine first fell into the yayin of heter, then motzei minas mina v'nir, it's going to be us. So then they're saying this on the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said yayin b'yayin kol shu, that it's also b'kol shu. It's only if a kitin of mayim did not fall as well, in addition to the yayin shenhata. Then we disregard the heter, the heter wine, meaning it doesn't add to give us 2 gallons of yayin, which would be nice and tam. So what's the difference? Why did Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda? What's the difference? Why are we saying one time in the Mishnah and another time he said it? He was saying about what Ravin said. That when we said it on the Mishnah, we never said anything about it, which one has to be first, whether the yayin nesach fell into the mayim for whether that the yayin the water mixed with the yayin shel heter first, or the mayim yayin nesach fell into the hisser first. The Mishnah we never said that. Man must the Ravin boy tchila. But on the Gabi Ravin, we had in that version we had said that you need that it fell in first. What time is it? Let's go a little bit more because we're still talking about this issue. If you don't mind, I'm sorry, but we only have a couple of days left. If anyone has to drop off here, you could certainly do so. Itmar yayin nesach shenachal lebar v'nachal sham kita shayayin. If wine, yayin nesach fell into a bar that already has yayin of het, and then a kitin shalmayim also fell in. Amar Chizkiya. Higdiloi be'isser asay. If the isser was the last thing, Higdiloi be'isser, Rashi says, Hamayim va'yayin be'isser, shenachal yayin esach b'sayf. If the yayin esach was what increased the size of the yayin, or increased the size of what we have, it was the last thing. So asr, Higdiloi be'heter mutter. If the last thing that came in was the water, then it's mutter, which is the exact opposite of what we said before. Before we said that the water has to go first. Now we're saying higdilei beheter is mutter. So we say he doesn't hold of royin, that we look at what was there as if it's not. We don't look at the yayin of isser. So we don't look at the yayin of heter as if it was there, but if it's the other way around, where the water came first together with the yayin nesech, so then the yayin nesech was bottled because of the water, and since the yayin nesech first hit the water, because before we're talking about whether the yayin nesech was the last thing to come in, I think, right? Now we're talking about whether the yayin of heter or the yayin or the mayim came first. That's Chizkiya says that. He says even if the yayin nesech was the last thing to come in, it's still going to be mutter. Let's say they're having the same machlekes as Rabbi Elazar and the Rabbanan, the Tanan. So Arshach, the Tanan, yeah. So Arshach chulin v'shel truma. If you have sa'oyer, meaning the starter that makes bread rise, some of it was chulin and some of it was truma. And neither pieces of starter was enough to cause the dough to rise. And it's starter with chimsa. Together they cause it to rise. We go after the second one to go in, and so if the second one was truma, then the whole thing is truma. If the second one was chulin, then the whole thing is chulin. So we want to say this is the same thing. We're going basa b'saif. We want to say the Gemara is looking at it very simply at this point. That just like over there, Belazar and Chachama argue. They say that the last thing that goes in is what determines whether it's us or not. So it's the same thing over here. When we're talking about whether the last thing that came in, Lagabi, whether it's the Nesach Yain came in last, then it's Chizkiya says it's aser, because Chizkiya doesn't hold. But we're not even looking at the royiness that we look at the yayin of heter as if it's not there. We're just looking at it plainly. That whichever thing is the last thing is aser. So if it's yayin esach was the last thing, it's aser. If it was mayim, that's the last thing, which is heter, then it's mutter. We say over there that the din is, it's no difference, that we only said this din that it's going to be mutter if the heter was last, legabe the chaymitz shel chulin, where you removed the chaymitz of Isser before the chaymitz of chulin came in. But if you hadn't removed it, it's all going to be aser. Chizkiya the Yama Kaman. So Chizkiya says this din, obviously, we're not talking about removing the Isser before you brought in the heter. And he says, but as long as the water is the last thing, it's going to be mutter. So what would be the dimion? So Elamai, so the machlekes over here is not a simple question of whichever comes last is definitive, but it's because of Ryan, whether we disregard the heter, the heter in calculating how much is there is, and if we have enough to be nice and top. The Chizkiah less by Ryan. Chizkiah doesn't hold of Ryan, and that's why he says that we're gonna it's gonna be aser. Rabbi Yochanan Islay, and Rabbi Yochanan does hold of Ryan. The Gemara, Midi Islay, Rabbi Yochanan and Ryan. Does Rabbi Yochanan really hold of Ryan? But boy, Minei Rabbi Asim Rabbi Yochanan. Shnei kaises, echat shel chulin ve'echat shel truma. You have two kaises, one of chulin and one of truma, mozgan, and you diluted each one of them. Ve'irvan zeh b'zeh, and then you mix them together. Mao, v'lei pashatlei, and he didn't answer. So this is talking about where there wasn't enough wine, there wasn't enough water in each one, in the one of truma alone to be mevatel. But if you mix it together, there wasn't enough water to be mevatel, but if you mix the chulin together with the truma, so then we say they together become stronger, so then they both are they're not going to be able to be mevatel in the water. But he didn't answer. Now, if you hold Ryan, then you should disregard the heter, the chulin, and just say that the truma is not enough to aser the water. So Gemara, at the beginning he didn't have an answer, but at the end he realized that we say Ryan as a heter can be shein. So this is talking we say straight out that we say Lagavi this case that in the end he came to the conclusion that we say Roy Nesahater Kilu. Okay, Shkoyach, thank you for your patience. I only did it because I want to make a siyum as Shem on Tuesday together with everyone in Flatbush. I hope so. Maybe.
All right. Okay, 7:50 tomorrow?
10 to 8 usually we do.
Yeah, 7:50.
7:50.
Okay, Shkoyach,
Shkoyach, thank you so much.